Some objects are just things. They sit on a shelf. But every now and then, you come across one that feels different. It feels like it's holding on to something. Today, we're looking at one of those objects. It's a gorgeous 19th century mirror at the Ashworth Museum. But its history, well, its history is something else entirely. Let's get into it.
So, let's start in a place that feels pretty modern, 1987. A museum guard, Alan, is doing his last rounds of the night. He glances in the mirror and sees a woman in a full Victorian dress standing right behind him. He whips around, nothing. The gallery's empty. He looks back at the mirror. She's gone, but his own reflection is suddenly terrifyingly old. He quit the very next day. And that quote, that was his parting shot. His story is really the fuse that relit this whole mystery.
Now, the mirror didn't get to the museum in the usual way. It wasn't some prized purchase. In 1923, a family basically dropped it on their doorstep with a note that said, and I quote, "It shows things that aren't there. We cannot live with it." They just wanted it out of their house. Now, as a historian, that's a huge red flag. You donate things because you love them, not because you're scared of them. Okay, so we've got the spooky stories, but now we have to put on our historian hats and dig into the facts. Where did this thing come from? Who made it? You have to follow the trail of an object to really understand it. And that trail leads us to a man named Cornelius Blackwood. He was a silversmith, not very well known, who made this mirror back in 1820. But here's the thing about Blackwood. He wasn't just interested in metalwork. The guy was apparently obsessed with the occult, specifically with the idea that mirrors could be reflective portals. He was deep into that old folklore about mirrors trapping souls. And then, just 3 years after he finished this piece, he completely vanished. Just gone. So after Blackwood disappears, the mirror starts its journey. And this is where the pattern becomes undeniable. It passed through 6 different families before ending up at the Ashworth. And what's so wild is that every single family, over the span of 100 years, reported the exact same kind of stuff. Seeing family members who had passed away, seeing kids they hadn't even had yet, or seeing these awful glimpses of the future. In the museum archives, there's a letter from 1851 that it's chilling. The man who owned the mirror wrote that his young daughter saw herself in it as an old, lonely woman and just started crying. A week later, she got sick and died. This is the point where, for me, the skepticism starts to crack. This isn't a campfire story. It's a father documenting a family tragedy, and he puts the blame squarely on this mirror. So for more than 100 years, that's all there was. These terrifying but, anecdotal stories. But then technology caught up, and the investigation shifted from dusty old letters to hard digital evidence. This is where the story takes a turn, and it becomes really, really hard to find a rational explanation. After years of guards reporting strange things, the museum finally decided to settle it. In 2019, they set up a high-def camera pointed right at the mirror, and they just let it roll 24/7. They wanted to see what was happening in that gallery when it was totally dark and totally empty. And what they caught on tape? Well, it's the stuff of nightmares. Okay, so imagine watching this footage. The gallery is locked, it's pitch black, and the reflection in the mirror changes. On its own, a woman's face sort of fades into view, and then a child's hand appears to press against the glass from the inside, and then it's gone. The museum's tech guys went over it with a fine-tooth comb. They ruled out everything. Lights from outside, strange reflections, there was nothing there. And the consistency is just mind-blowing. Sometime in the 2010s, a guard named Tom literally ran out of the museum because he saw a smiling man in the mirror with a scar on his cheek. It wasn't him. So the curator goes back and pulls the original donation file from 1923. And what did that family report seeing? A man with a scar on his cheek. The exact same face, almost 100 years apart. How do you explain that? After all this, the museum finally agreed to let a parapsychologist, a Dr. Vance, spend the night. And the very first thing he recorded wasn't a ghost, it was a number. An 8-degree drop in temperature, right in front of the mirror. There was no draft, no change in the HVAC system, just a pocket of intense cold. And Dr. Vance's night just went off the rails from there. After the cold spot, he claims he saw 3 reflections of himself, as a kid, as a very old man, and a third one he said just felt wrong, an other. Then he said a sentence just popped into his head, clear as day. You are not the first, you will not be the last. But the kicker, his audio recorder picked up a faint whisper. It's what they call an EVP, And when they cleaned up the audio, it was unmistakable. It said a name, Cornelius Blackwood. Honestly, for me, the most convincing piece of evidence is how the museum itself reacted. This is a serious academic institution, and after all this, they changed their policies. That gallery now closes at 4 p.m., 2 hours before everything else. There's a list of staff who refuse to work the night shift, and every single night, without fail, they cover the mirror with a heavy black cloth. You don't do that because of a silly ghost story. You do that when you believe there's a real problem. So, look, the evidence is pretty overwhelming at this point. The question isn't really if something is happening anymore. The question is, what is happening? If the Ashworth mirror isn't just reflecting our world, what exactly are we looking at? And it turns out, the man who made it might have known the answer. They found a letter from Cornelius Blackwood, written just before he disappeared. In it, he says, "The glass does not reflect, it remembers." He talks about seeing faces from the past and future, and he ends it with this terrifying line, "I fear I have opened a door that cannot be closed." It sounds like he knew exactly what he'd made, and he was horrified by it.
So what the heck is going on? Well, there are 4 big theories. One is residual energy, that the mirror is like a tape recorder, just replaying old emotional events. 2 is a dimensional portal, a literal window into another time or another reality. 3 is the one Blackwood seemed to fear, a soul prison, that it actually traps entities inside it. And 4 is the most grounded theory, that it's just a psychological mirror, showing us our own deepest fears.
That soul prison theory got a massive and frankly deeply disturbing boost from one investigation. A team brought in a spirit box, a device that scans radio waves, and they got a direct, multi-word response. Out of the static, a clear voice said, "We are trapped. Help us."
But the thing that keeps coming up is this phenomenon of seeing yourself, but different. A teenage visitor named Lucy recently reported seeing herself as an old woman with a sad look on her face, which is almost a perfect match to that letter from 1851. And remember Dr. Vance saw his past and future self? This isn't random apparitions, it's a very specific vision that keeps repeating over 170 years.
The museum's current curator, Dr. Harris, has probably the most chilling take on it all. She studied it for years, and she doesn't think it's a random at all. She thinks the mirror shows specific images to specific people, almost like it's tailored to them. She believes the thing in the mirror isn't just a recording, it's intelligent. And her worst fear, she thinks it's learning. And this is where we leave the realm of ghost hunting and get into some really heavy philosophical stuff. The Ashworth mirror basically throws our whole concept of time out the window. If you can see your past self and your future self in the present, what does that even mean? Are they all happening at once? And if so, who are you in this exact moment? So today, the mirror sits in the Ashworth Museum. The doors to that gallery get locked at 4 p.m. on the dot. The cameras are always rolling in the dark. And every so often, the guards log something simple, something small, but something that is just so unsettling. The black cloth they use to cover the mirror. Sometimes it moves, bulging out just a little, as if someone or something on the other side is pushing to get out. Which brings us to a final, pretty uncomfortable question. The Ashworth mirror is an extreme case, for sure, but it makes you think. The next time you're standing in front of your bathroom mirror, take an extra second. Look really close. Are you absolutely 100% sure the face staring back is actually yours?